When I crocheted this wall hanging, I changed what hook I was using partway through the project. Even though they were the same size, it impacted my tension and made the bottom of the project much wider than the top. I've been meaning to block this project for a while, and since my mom just got a handheld steamer, I thought it would be the perfect time to test a new way to block crochet projects. This is a Hamilton Beach handheld steamer. I'll link to it, and it runs around $20. My setup for blocking is a couple of towels on the carpeted floor. I've also seen people hang up their projects in a doorway to steam, but I didn't have a good way to hang my projects. Later, I realized this meant I was essentially just ironing, so keep that in mind before you run out and buy a new gadget. The first item I tackled was the pink wall hanging. Since this project gets its texture from bobble stitches, I decided to steam iron the back of the project that was flatter. What you see on camera is my very first time blocking a crochet project with a steam iron, as well as my first time ever using a steam iron of this style. So this is real, unedited footage of actual real-world results. As you might notice, I struggled with my technique a bit. The fabric wanted to bunch if I just pressed down on it like an iron. Also, my steaming was rather sporadic. What I did find is this Lion Brand Pound of Love yarn gets insanely soft after steaming. A lot of acrylics soften up beautifully after washing, so this is another way to turn those scratchy acrylics into plush items. On that note, it is a good idea to check the yarn label to see if the fiber type is safe to iron or not. Some acrylics will melt under high heat, while other fibers could shrink. If that's the case, you will want to skip the steam blocking and opt for a more traditional style of wet blocking using cool temperature water. I'll link to a video all about my wet blocking process. As you've likely picked up on, I am gently stretching the crochet material as I steam. That's because for this particular project, one section ended up too narrow from working my stitches too tightly. In the areas that are already the desired size, I lightly steamed just to soften the fabric. On the two small areas, I stretched the fabric while I steamed so it would hold at the new size. If you're new to blocking entirely, the premise is twofold. One, you allow the fibers to relax, and two, you can shape the project to even it out. Since the blocking process relaxes the fibers, you can relax them into a more even shape so your project won't be ruffly or wonky. I don't block all of my crochet projects, but it is helpful for items like this. Knitters also block their projects sometimes. I've seen some insane knit projects where when they first worked up the sweater, it looked far too small. But after blocking, the fibers relaxed the way they were meant to, and the top evened out to the perfect size and shape. It's truly magic. Now this second project you've been seeing on screen, it's a tank top that ended up just a little shorter than I wanted. The shape of this project is just fine, but I wanted to try relaxing the fibers and stretching them out a little bit so I can get the top just a tad longer. I worked only vertically because I liked the width of the project as is. I only wanted to increase the length. While the change isn't dramatic, I did get about an inch of length added to this project. Of note, this tank is crocheted with 100% cotton yarn. Last up, I tested the steam blocking method on 2 crochet blankets. Because of the delicate nature of these projects, the fabric had some ruffling issues. I wanted to see if steam blocking could get the project to lay flat and have sharp right angle corners. However, this yarn has a partial wool content. If you know anything about wool, you know it can shrink. Fortunately, the yarn handled the steam like a champ. I was a lot more careful in how much steam and pressure I used on these projects. The bigger projects are a little harder to get to lay even just because they take up so much space, but when it was all said and done, I think I improved the overall look of these projects. The edges are less bunchy and the sides are much more straight than before. One final note on the actual blocking process, it did take some time. I had to slowly and very carefully go over each section. However, it is faster overall than wet blocking and the dry time is much shorter. I do find the technique a little more challenging though. I was going to wrap up the video here, but later I got to thinking of another option for steam blocking a project that would allow for more precise shaping. If you have something that can handle high heat and have pins placed in it, you can use this second method. I used an ironing board. Using rust-proof pins, I pinned my project to the ironing board in the shape I ultimately wanted it to take. Then I used the steamer to steam the fabric. Note that I'm not touching the metal to the crochet project, so I'm not ironing it like I was showing earlier. I'm letting just the steam do the work here. After steaming, I left the project pinned until it dried completely, then removed the pins to see my results. It worked out pretty well. This pinning method is more similar to wet blocking, but using the steamer has the advantage of a faster dry time. So once I finished blocking my 4 projects, I was pleased to find that steam blocking is a great option for polishing up my projects. Some items might work better with a wet blocking method, but it is nice to have another option for blocking in my toolkit. The top is a smidge longer, the blankets lay much more evenly, and the initial wall hanging looks so much better now that it's a rectangle instead of a trapezoid. I'm curious if you have ever tried steam blocking your projects. If you have, let me know how it went for you, or if you plan to try this method in the future, I'd love to hear what you want to try blocking. Happy crafting!